The verdict. The hologram of Earth hung in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, like a blue insult. Counselor Marath of the Velhari Dominion didn't even look at it. She had already decided. They all had, before the session began, 7 species, 40 voices, one conclusion reached in private corridors 3 days before humanity's representatives ever stepped through the chamber doors. Ambassador Priya Mehta stood alone at the podium. Behind her, 2 aides held datapads they no longer needed. The verdict had already been read. Humanity is hereby exiled from the Galactic Council and all associated trade corridors, diplomatic channels, and shared infrastructure. Effective immediately. Indefinitely. The charge? Destabilizing influence. Humanity had been a council member for only 31 years, and in that time had filed more dissenting votes than the previous 4 centuries of combined council history. They had sheltered refugee species without council approval. They had shared restricted technologies with pre-spaceflight civilizations. They had, on one memorable occasion, talked an entire fleet out of a war using nothing but a negotiation style the Council's diplomatic algorithms categorized as chaotically persistent. Marath leaned forward. "You understand this means you are alone. No trade. No protection. No allies." Priya Mehta looked at her for a long moment. "Counselor," she said quietly, "we've been alone before." She picked up her datapad, turned, and walked out. Year 1. Back on Earth, no one panicked. That surprised a lot of people, including, privately, some humans. But Director General Solomon Adissa had prepared for this. Not because he had predicted the exile specifically, but because he had understood for years that the Council's tolerance for humanity was thin and growing thinner. He had spent a decade quietly building contingencies. Within 6 months of the exile, Earth launched the Meridian Initiative. A program so ambitious that the Council's intelligence networks, when they finally decoded it, went very quiet for several days. Humanity began reaching out, not to Council members, but to everyone the Council had ignored, marginalized, or outright oppressed. The Thuan, a nomadic species living in the unclaimed corridor between star systems, too small for the Council to bother with. The Brek, a methane-breathing civilization that had been denied membership 4 times on technicalities. The Oshari, who had once been a Council species until a border dispute stripped them of their seat and left them economically strangled for 80 years. Earth didn't offer them charity. It offered them something far more dangerous. Partnership. Equal terms. Shared infrastructure. Open technology exchange. 1 vote per species, regardless of fleet size or GDP. A council where the smallest voice mattered as much as the largest. They called it the Free Worlds Compact. Within 14 months, 23 species had signed. The Council notices. Marath received the intelligence report on a Tuesday. She read it 3 times. The Free Worlds Compact had, in 14 months, constructed 7 joint space stations, opened 12 new trade corridors previously considered economically unviable, and developed a shared defense grid that, according to her analysts, was already more responsive and adaptable than anything the Council had deployed in the last century. More troubling, the species joining were happy. Not compliant. Not fearful. Happy. Their economic output had increased. Their internal conflicts had decreased. 3 species that had been enemies for generations were now sharing research facilities. "How?" asked her aide, Counselor Brenneth, reading over her shoulder. "They don't rule them," Marath said slowly, as though the concept was foreign on her tongue. "They work with them." She set the report down. The Council had exiled humanity to weaken it, to isolate it, to remind it of its place in a galaxy that had been organized long before humans looked up at the stars. Instead, they had handed it a blank canvas. The offer. 2 years after the exile, a Free Worlds Compact delegation arrived at the Galactic Council's doorstep. Not to beg for readmission. Ambassador Meta, now representing not one planet but 31 species, stood at the same podium where she had received the verdict. She looked the same. A little older, perhaps. A little less patient. "We're not here to rejoin," she said simply. "We're here to offer you membership. In us." The chamber erupted. When the noise died, Marath looked at Meta across the vast space between them, and felt something she had not felt in 400 years of political life. Genuine uncertainty. "And if we refuse?" she asked. Meta almost smiled. "Then you're welcome to watch." She set a single data pad on the podium. The Compact's charter, 31 signatures, 31 flags, and walked out the same way she had 2 years ago. This time, the chamber stayed silent long after she was gone.